What's up YouTube, MDEX Music here, and today we're going to talk more about Bi-Triadic Hexatonic Scales. So in our last video we kind of touched on them briefly and went into what they were on a fundamental basis and somewhat how to use them. But today we're going to go into further detail explaining Bi-Triadic Hexatonics a little better hopefully. I got an email from Mark recently that asked, could you explain Bi-Triadic Hexatonic Scales? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about what they are and how we can use them. As we mentioned before, Bi-Triadic hexatonics are basically just 6 notes in a scale created by 2 triads that have no common tones. 2 non-overlapping triads. Triads have a powerful, easy to identify sound even when embedded in other structures or scales. Bi-Triadic hexatonics, if used cleverly, can create interesting lines and harmonies since they contain 2 non-overlapping triads. Each of these triads may be used and taken advantage of independently or in conjunction with one another. The secret is how you see and treat a bi-triadic hexatonic. Let's start with a simple example. Imagine a C triad combined with a D minor triad. They are non-overlapping. C, E, and G, and D, F, and A. No common tones. So this should produce a bi-triadic hexatonic. If we assume C is the root, or the key, then we can see this scale as being produced by the major triad on the 1 and a minor triad on the 2. In Tessitura Pro, you will find all scales in music, and the bi-triadic hexatonics may be filtered out by enabling the checkbox labeled Show Only Bi-Triadic Hexatonics. At the moment, we're also viewing source scales only, so there are only 25 showing. But if you select all, then you'll see all 140 bi-triadic hexatonics. So let's find the hexatonic that contains the 1 and the 2 minor. There it is, hexatonic 1, 2 minor. Let's listen to it. Now, you're probably thinking, that's just the scale of C without the B, and you're right. But that's not the only way to look at this scale. The interesting approach is to see the scale as 2 triads. If we look at the info, we can see that it contains the C triad and the D minor triad, the 1 and the 2 minor. If we change the key to say F, then the triads are, of course, F and G minor. But we can also see it as 1 and 2 minor regardless of the key. Looking at the possible triads, we see this scale can be assigned a C sus4, or a C6. Okay, so how can we use this? Let me give you an example. I see that this scale does not have a 7 of any kind. The degrees are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the lack of a 7 present makes the hexatonic scale very versatile. So we can obviously use it in a chord like C6 because there's no 7. But because the 7 is not defined by the scale, we can also use it on any type of 7, like C major 7 or C dominant 7. The B is not in the scale, so to use a B natural in the C major 7 or a B flat in the C dominant 7 doesn't matter. In this case, it's very versatile. Let's try a C7 sus4 as our chord. We could use, of course, Mixolydian as our scale to improvise or compose melodies over a C7 sus4. But let's use this hexatonic 1, 2 minor. Now, one of the possible approaches is to bring out the triads independently, the C major triad and the D minor triad. So I could play I'm thinking D minor, then C, then D minor, then C again. You can now create interesting lines which are very simple but effective because each triad has its own sound, which I'm playing over the C7 sus4. And you're only thinking about C major and D minor triads. That's it. So let's do another example with one of the most interesting bi-triadic hexatonics in music, the symmetrical augmented scale, also known as the Messiaen III Truncated. This is an amazing scale. It is bi-triadic hexatonic, but also symmetrical, with only 2 possible modes. By the way, there are only 8 scales in music that are symmetrical, and bi-triadic hexatonics, which are all produced by only 3 source scales. Being symmetrical, there are multiple chord pairings that can be used to produce the same hexatonic scale. So there they are. In C, we can see the symmetrical augmented as G augmented paired with E augmented, or as E major paired with C minor, or A flat with E minor, or C with A flat minor. Let's listen to it. As you can see, this scale has a minor third followed by a half step, another minor third, half step, and yet another minor third, half step. So C symmetrical augmented is the same as E symmetrical augmented and the A flat symmetrical augmented. So now we can think of any of these triads when writing melodies or improvising, and we will get a C symmetrical augmented sound. This allows us to create really out-of-the-box melodies and harmonies that we wouldn't come up with otherwise. Here's a simple melody I wrote using this scale. So all the notes and triads I've used belong to the symmetrical augmented scale. But I am approaching these notes trying to outline the triads and pairs of triads that are contained in the scale. Another way we can use this is in improvisation. Let's say I have a D minor 7 flat 5 to G7 to C major 7. So I can use the C symmetrical augmented over this progression. I'm going to consider the C A flat minor pairing. So, over the D minor 7 flat 5, I will play the C triad. Over G7, the A flat minor. And over C, I can go back to the C or play the E minor, which is also there. Or I can break the triads to create a line like this. So there it is. I hope that was helpful. Keep sending us your questions. Tessitura Pro is available on OS X and iOS. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.